less than a week to go until the NFL draft, I am doing my perfect Miami Dolphins mock draft. This is what I would consider the best possible outcome for the Miami Dolphins based off everything we have heard, seen, team needs, all 7 rounds, all 10 picks, no trades. Let's just see how things would go in my perfect ideal situation. And in my perfect ideal situation, I think Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, ultimately slides and is there at Miami's 13th overall pick. Now, when you think about where Will Johnson could go in the first round, I think 13 is the floor. Like, I think he could go 6 as his highest point to the Raiders, but 11, 12, or 13 is where Johnson will likely go. 49ers need a corner, the Cowboys need a corner, and the Dolphins desperately need a corner. And ideally, hopefully, Johnson is not picked by one of those two, and Dallas goes with a offensive player like Tedder McMillan, Matthew Golden, or a running back like Amari Hampton. San Francisco, hopefully they go with either Jahdae Barron or Kelvin Banks or one of the other offensive linemen if they fall on draft night. And I can't say this enough. Will Johnson is my guy. He is the guy that I want. I've been saying it for weeks. I've been saying it almost for a month now. Because I used to came to this conclusion that we needed Will Johnson to work alongside Jaylen Ramsey. But based off what happened earlier this week, it feels like Jaylen Ramsey will no longer be on this depth chart relatively soon, which is not good. I don't like that. So we need a cornerback one of the future, and I think Will Johnson will be able to fill that void. There's questions about his ability to play in man coverage because his lack of straight line speed and his change of direction being a little bit weak based off his 4.33 shuttle time, which ranked in the 13th percentile. But he just put up good numbers at Michigan. He locked people up for the Wolverines, and I think he would fit in Anthony Weaver's system that is very versatile, exotic, and different. I think it works in Miami, and I think Will Johnson would be able to be a solid CB1 for the Dolphins right away. All right, make sure you are following us on Instagram, by the way. At Dolphins Today IG is our handle. Content over there on the Instagram page that you can't find on YouTube. We currently have 820 follows. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're 180 away. That would be very much appreciated if we get to 1,000. Dolphins Today IG is our handle. Short form content, have you covered everything Miami in between our YouTube videos. Let's move over to the second round. And ideally for me, we go corner in first round, and we go defensive line in the second round because we still have nobody on the defensive line outside of Zach Sealer and Benito Jones. And, well, there's not many good free agents available, so you can't trust Miami to address that in free agency after the NFL draft. And I am a big fan of TJ Sanders. There's been guys like Alfred Collins, Darius Alexander to be mocked to Miami at 48, but I think Sanders is my personal favorite. He is explosive. He is a disruptor on the interior. Him and Zach Sealer, I think, will just have a field day on some of these opposing interior offensive lines for the Dolphins defense. Sanders last season, a 12.6% pass rush win rate for South Carolina and an 8.8% run stop rate. Doing that in the SEC is impressive work. TJ Sanders was one of the main reasons that South Carolina defense was better than expected. I think Sanders is a really solid pro as well. And we talked about Will Johnson being my number one guy that the Dolphins could draft at 13. I will argue TJ Sanders is the number one player I want the Dolphins to draft at 48. Because when you mix in where they could go, I think Sanders will go on day 2. I would be shocked if he ultimately went first round. I think the only first-round defensive lineman on the interior will be Mason Graham, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan. But I could see Sanders going early second round. But in this situation, he slides the 48, and the Dolphins scoop him up and add him to that interior, and I do jumping jacks and joy on draft night. Let me know who your my guy is in the NFL draft. We all have them, right? We all do the scouting, we all do the film, we all watch the mock drafts, read about these guys, and come up with the players that we want to be on the Dolphins the most. I would argue Will Johnson and TJ Sanders are both my guys. We'll have another one coming up in just a bit, but I want to know yours down in the comment section. Wouldn't say he's a my guy, but Charles Grant, the offensive lineman from William and Mary, I think would be an ideal pick for the Dolphins at 98. Assuming you go DB and then defensive line, you can't forget about the offensive line hole at left guard. And Charles Grant, I think, is a fine pick at 98 and a clear-cut kind of tier break between some of the other offensive linemen that could be going in this range. Grant for William & Mary last season was absolutely elite. Obviously, the question about having a jump in competition, only played a handful of FBS teams last season and in his career, but graded out extremely well in 2024. As you see on screen, only allowed 2 sacks. And the intriguing thing about Charles Grant is that I think he fits on this Dolphins roster very well. When you look at his scouting report, at least in my opinion, he's an athlete. His RAS score was in the high 5s, but if you look at just his 40-yard dash and 20-yard split, it's ranking in the greens in the high 8s. So I think he fits in the Dolphins zone scheme that they run. He likely will shift inside, only being 311 pounds, but a wrestler in his past. He's got physicality. He will need to improve his strength to play on the interior, and is a developmental guy, but I think he is someone that could have the highest outcome of any third-round offensive lineman at pick number 98. And moving on to day 3, the first selection Miami owns is 116. I think the most ideal outcome here is Billy Bowman Jr. And Chris Grier did say this past week at his press conference that Miami likely won't draft or a safety high because they believe they have 2 starters already in their building with McMorris, Melifonwu, Davis, and Campbell. But Bowman would be just a perfect addition to that room. He was so good in coverage last year, just allowing barely above a 50% completion percentage, only 131 yards, had a couple interceptions, a QB rating when targeted of 79.6. Billy Bowman has a lot of traits that I like in as a safety. He's athletic. He displays elite sideline to sideline range and speed to be that deep center field safety. Now, the one question with Billy Bowman Jr., I'm not going to lie, it's his tackling. He is not the best tackling safety. He isn't. And I'm not going to try to come up here and act like he is. But when you look at him as a coverage safety, he can cover. He's a ball hawk. And you put him out in center field, let him read the defense or quarterback, see what develops over the middle of the field, deep down the sideline. And then when the quarterback lets it rip, I think Bowman's got the athleticism to get there, break up the pass, or even take it away as he ran a low 4.4 40-yard dash. I'm a big fan of Bowman. I think he might be available in round 4. Could be a third-round pick as well. But if he's there on round 4, that'd be a perfect safety selection for the Miami Dolphins. All right, we're going to get into some more picks here for Miami, but we are sponsored and the official ticketing partner of Dolphins Today. That's GameTime, the best way to get your tickets, whether you want to go to a sporting event or concert, it does not matter. And with the NBA playoffs here, killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, lowest price guaranteed. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. They have last-minute deals, which help you save up to 60% off when you buy last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy show, theaters, other events. All-in pricing is a feature. When you toggle it, shows you the total price of your ticket up front with no surprise fees at checkouts. They have the lowest price guaranteed, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. They'll do that if you find a ticket on a different app or service with a lower price for that same exact seat. GameTime also has great customer service, flexible. It's the best one in the ticketing industry. And with them being so user-friendly, it's hard not to love GameTime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on to the other 4th-round pick Miami has at number 135. This is my guy. It's wide receiver from Illinois, Pat Bryant. I mean, I can't rave enough about this young man and how much I want him to be a Miami Dolphin. I'm being serious. He's got excellent size. He is physical. He is really good in the run blocking game. I just will never forget the NFL Combine quote when asked about how he likes run blocking. He says, no block, no rock. And I know that's a statement said a lot, but I watch the tape, and he does it to a T. He's got good size at 6'2 and a quarter. I think he's fluid enough to make things happen. And I just would absolutely love to take Pat Bryant. I absolutely would. I want him to be a Dolphin. He was productive last season. He is someone I want to be a Dolphin very, very bad. All right, let's move over to round 5, where I actually think a double dip would be smart on the defensive line. Cam Jackson from Florida in the round 5 selection. Now, you could go with a couple of other defensive linemen here, but I'll talk about Cam Jackson specifically here because my goodness, this is a big fella. He is 6'6", 330, just an absolute space eater. Now, this is a one tech. This is a nose tackle, so it's not someone that you could play alongside Zach Sealer in a 4-3 front when you have your edges on the outside. But he is someone that in obvious rundown situations or in the goal line, you can put him in there and he'll move people, man. You got Benito Jones to have that nose tackle one-tech spot after he had a pretty solid season last year. I think Jackson would be a good developmental guy behind Benito Jones, as obviously Jones is only on a one-year deal. I like Cam Jackson. I like his size, but I also like the idea of doubling down at defensive line, considering Miami only has 2 standard contract players at the position group right now, and that is Benito Jones and Zach Sealer. All right, make sure you are subscribed because next week, this is when it all becomes real. We will have wall-to-wall Miami Dolphins draft coverage when it comes to first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, seventh round. It don't matter. We will be live for all 7 rounds of the NFL draft, so make sure you are subscribed. I'm going to go with a developmental third quarterback in this round 5 pick. And I think that this is something Miami will ultimately do, whether it is a Kyle McCord, whether it is a Quinn Ewers, whether it is a Dillon Gabriel. Those 3 players have been linked to the Dolphins quite a bit, all seemingly going in the 5th round, at least in terms of the projections. And with Miami having 2 picks here, it makes sense to take one of them here. And I think Gabriel is an ideal fit for Miami and a really good backup to Tua Tagovailoa. Listen, I know it's lazy, but it's the truth. Having a potential backup to Tua that's also left-handed makes it very easy because when you are left-handed, the protection schemes are different, the verbiage are different, the lingo at the line of scrimmage. So if you have Gabriel be your backup, that doesn't have to change. Similar play style in terms of gets the ball out of his hands quickly, accurate within 15 to 20 yards of the line of scrimmage, had a good completion percentage last year. I think Gabriel is a very solid option to be a developmental third quarterback this year behind Tua and Zach Wilson, but ultimately become Tua's backup if you make the decision that Tua is your QB1 moving forward past 2025. All right, let's move over to the 3 7th-round picks that Miami has, and this one will be Ollie Gordon, the running back from Oklahoma State. I think Miami's obviously drafting a running back in this draft. They've kind of alluded to it all offseason long, only signing one in Alexander Madison during free agency, also having Ollie Gordon on multiple visits. They met Ollie Gordon at the NFL Combine. They also brought him in the Dolphins headquarters for a top 30 visit. They brought in Damian Martinez from Miami on a top 30 visit. They brought in another running back on a top 30 visit. They are clearly scouting some of these running backs, and even though some people might want to take a better running back in round 4 or 5, I think it's the more ideal situation to address other positions. Wait till the 7th round where you might be able to get an Ollie Gordon, a Raheem Sanders from South Carolina, and more of these other guys. But Ollie Gordon is a really good fit for Miami as a bruising in between the tackle runner behind Madison, Achane, and Jalen Wright. I think going with another offensive lineman in round 7 is also a solid option. And listen, we're just throwing darts here in round 7, but if I'm going to throw a dart, I'll take the chance on Jalen Travis, the offensive lineman from Iowa State. This is a big fella, man. This guy's 6'7", he's 340, he's athletic, he's good in a zone scheme too. Like, he is athletic. And at that size, being that athletic, to be able to work best in a zone run scheme, it's impressive. He also just allowed a 2.5% pressure rate for Iowa State in 2024. take him as a developmental guy that there's no guarantee he makes the roster. But if he does, look out, folks, because the Dolphins could have found a diamond in the rough on the 7th round selection of Jalen Travis. He's someone I'm intrigued with in this range. All right, let's go to the final pick of the mock draft, and that is Oronde Gadsden, tight end from Syracuse. I think Miami is likely going to draft a wide or a tight end at some point, whether it's in the middle rounds, whether it's in round 7. And how could you not want to take Oronde Gadsden when he has his dad play for the Miami Dolphins back in the day? Keep it in the family, folks. Why not? He was also very productive for Syracuse last season. He had almost 1,000 yards. He was one of Kyle McCord's favorite targets. So, it honestly wouldn't be that upsetting to me if the Dolphins ultimately drafted Kyle McCord in the 4th or 5th round and then took Gadsden on day 3. I'd be pretty hype about that. Be pretty cool, in my opinion. And he could be a developmental tight end behind Tanner Connor, who's still on the roster, behind Julian Hill, behind Farrell Brown and Jonnu Smith. I think it's a very intriguing option for Miami in the 7th round. All right, it's red pen time. This was my perfect Miami Dolphins mock draft. Not just players, but almost like the kind of position versus value and where I want to take these specific positions, like running back, like a wide receiver, like a tight end, like a QB. Like I just think that's kind of the right rounds and range they should go with. So if that was the mock draft, it's my perfect mock draft. So I'd give it an A+ because that's the most ideal outcome to me. But I want to know how you guys think that perfect mock draft ultimately was. And I'll close the show with saying this. This is the last chance for Chris Grier. It is. Chris Grier shouldn't even be employed right now. He should already be fired. But unfortunately, I don't make the decisions for the Dolphins. And he's still here. If he doesn't hit on 50% of these picks, I feel like, and the Dolphins don't have a successful season next year, and what is successful? Making the playoffs, and I would argue getting a playoff win, because it hasn't happened in 24-plus years. He's got to have a good draft. He's got to have a roster that wins next year. I think he feels the pressure, and I think he's got to put up or shut up. Are you going to thrive and rise to the occasion, have the best draft of your Dolphins career, or are you going to fade into existence, and we'll have a new GM talking and making selections next year? Last chance, Chris. Make it happen. All right, that'll do it for this mock draft. We will continue to have you covered with everything Miami Dolphins leading up to Thursday, April 24th NFL Draft, as well as be live for those 3 days of the NFL Draft. So subscribe today and join the channel.